Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim sat in the back row of the council chamber. He had been sitting in that same spot for 30 years. The seat had become worn from his presence, the armrest smooth under his hand. Around him, hundreds of alien delegates filled the vast circular room, their voices echoing off the crystal dome overhead. On the main floor, High Counselor Vreth raised 4 of his 6 arms. The insectoid leader's shell gleamed under the lights. Silence fell across the chamber. "The matter is settled," Vreth announced. "The trade dispute between the Kelmar and Drexen systems will be resolved through direct negotiation between the parties. No mediators are needed." Hyunwoo felt his jaw tighten. He had spent 3 months drafting a mediation proposal for that exact dispute. The proposal sat in the council database unread, just like the last 100 proposals humanity had submitted. Next to him, Junior Ambassador Ji-won Park leaned close. "Sir, should we speak up? Our proposal addresses everything they just discussed." Hyunwoo shook his head slowly. "Save your breath. They will not listen." The session continued for another 2 hours. Hyunwoo watched as representatives from powerful species debated and argued. They discussed infrastructure problems. They talked about communication breakdowns between fleets. They complained about conflicts erupting in border regions. Not once did anyone mention that human engineers maintained most of the infrastructure they relied on. No one acknowledged that human technicians kept the communication networks running. No one recognized that human mediators had been quietly preventing small disputes from becoming wars for the past century. At the end of the session, Admiral Krelth approached the podium. The massive reptilian officer's scales caught the light as he moved. "We have successfully negotiated peace between the Yaler and Phoenix factions," he announced proudly. "The Council's diplomatic efforts have prevented another war." Hyunwoo closed his eyes. Mediator Bo-ram Choi had spent 6 weeks shuttling between both factions, working through the night to find common ground. She had drafted the peace agreement they were now celebrating. Her name appeared nowhere in the official report. As the delegates filed out, Vreth passed near the human section. He did not look at them. "Humanity has contributed little to galactic affairs," he said to his aide, loud enough for others to hear. "Perhaps we should reconsider their council membership. They occupy space without purpose." Ji-won started to rise from her seat. Hyunwoo put a hand on her arm. "Let it go," he said quietly. "Sir, we cannot keep accepting this. We do everything. We fix everything. We solve their problems and they treat us like we are invisible." Hyunwoo gathered his documents. "You are right. We cannot keep accepting this." That evening, Hyunwoo called a meeting in the human diplomatic quarters. The room filled quickly. Engineers, mediators, technicians, and military officers crowded into the space. Captain Ji-won Park stood near the door, her arms crossed. "We are leaving," Hyunwoo announced without preamble. The room fell silent. Then everyone started talking at once. Engineer Do-eun Lee raised her hand. "Leaving? You mean withdrawing from the council?" "Yes," Hyunwoo said. "We are withdrawing completely. Every human in council space will return home. No announcements. No speeches, no drama. We will simply leave." "About time," Do-eun muttered. "Do you know how many systems I maintain? Hundreds. Do you know how many thank you messages I have received? 0. Bo-ram spoke up from the back. "What about the peace negotiations I'm currently handling? There are 3 active situations that could explode without mediation." "Let them handle it themselves," Hyunwoo said. "We have been handling their problems for too long. They can learn to solve their own conflicts." Captain Ji-won pushed off from the wall. "I can have our ships ready in 3 days. How quickly do you want this done?" 3 days is perfect," Hyunwoo replied. "Start with non-essential personnel. Then technical staff. Diplomatic personnel will leave last." Over the next 72 hours, humans across council space began to disappear. They packed their belongings quietly. They submitted no formal resignations. They filed no complaints. They simply left. Daeun walked through the infrastructure control center one last time. Screens showed power grids, communication networks, and life support systems across dozens of council facilities. Her team had maintained all of them. "Should we leave instructions?" one of her engineers asked. Daeun thought about it. Then she shook her head. "No. If they want to learn, they can figure it out themselves. We built detailed documentation. It is in the system. They never bothered to read it before. Maybe they will read it now." Bo-ram sent final messages to the parties she had been mediating between. The messages were simple. "I am no longer available. Resolve your differences yourselves. Captain G1 coordinated the evacuation with military precision. Transport ships arrived at human posts across Council space. Personnel boarded quickly and efficiently. Within 3 days, thousands of humans had vanished from their positions. On the final day, Hyunwoo walked through the Council headquarters one last time. He passed the chamber where he had sat for 30 years. He walked past offices where human staff had worked tirelessly. The spaces were empty now. In the main corridor, he encountered scientist Yelena, the energy base being pulsed with soft blue light. "Ambassador Kim," she said, "I heard rumors that human personnel are leaving. Is this true?" "It is true," Hyunwoo replied. "Why? What happened?" Hyunwoo looked at her. Yelena had always been kind. She had always acknowledged human contributions, but she was one voice among thousands. "Nothing happened," he said quietly. "That is the problem. We have been here for a century. We have worked hard. We have contributed much, but nothing we do matters to the Council, so we are leaving." "But the Council needs you," Yelena protested. "If that were true, they would have noticed us while we were here." Hyunwoo walked away. Behind him, Yelena's light dimmed with concern. The last human ship departed from Council space at midnight station time. Captain Ji-won stood on the bridge, watching the massive station shrink in the view screen. "All personnel accounted for," her first officer reported. "We are clear of Council territory." "Set course for home," Ji-won ordered. Hyunwoo stood at the window of his quarters, looking back at the glittering lights of the Council headquarters. A century of human effort. A century of unrecognized work. All of it left behind. He wondered how long it would take them to notice. Not that humans were gone. That was obvious. But how long would it take them to notice everything humans had been doing? He suspected they would find out very soon. 6 months passed since the humans left. Trade Minister Yuna sat in her small office on Station Valor 7 and reviewed the latest reports. The numbers were bad and getting worse every week. She was one of the few humans who stayed behind. The Council needed someone to help with the transition. Yuna volunteered because she believed in doing things properly, even when others treated you poorly, but now she wondered if staying was a mistake. The computer screen showed the latest incident report. Another merchant ship attacked by pirates. The 5th one this week. Before humans left, there might be one attack per month. Now it happened almost daily. The outer rim trade routes had no protection anymore. Human patrol ships used to cover those areas. They responded quickly to distress signals. They prevented most attacks just by being present. Pirates knew better than to operate where human vessels watched. Now the pirates knew no one was coming. Council species tried to fill the gap, but their ships were slow to respond. Their coordination was poor. Each species wanted to protect only their own vessels. No one wanted to risk their ships for others. Captain Hyun of the Valorian merchant fleet contacted her that morning. His voice was desperate. He lost 2 cargo ships in 1 week. Crews were dead or missing. The cargo was worth millions. "Can you do something?" Hyun begged. "Contact someone?" "The Council ignores our request for help." Yuna had no good answer for him. She was just a trade minister, not a military commander. She had no authority anymore. The Council made that clear when they expelled humanity. But the pirate attacks were not the only problem. 3 Council worlds reported a disease outbreak. The symptoms were severe. Thousands were sick. Hundreds were dying. The medical research stations humans built should have caught this early. They monitored diseases across Council space and developed treatments quickly, but the stations needed constant maintenance. They needed skilled technicians who understood the complex systems. The Council tried to keep them running after humans left. But they did not understand the technology well enough. Equipment broke down. Data collection failed. By the time they noticed the outbreak, it had spread too far. Yuna received a message from a Council health official. The message was formal and cold, asking if she had any information about the medical systems. They were too proud to admit they needed help. She sent them what documentation she had. It would not be enough. The systems were designed to be operated by people who understood them deeply. Reading a manual was not the same as years of training. The quantum communication network was failing too. Council species relied on it for instant communication across vast distances. Humans engineered the network over decades. It was stable and powerful when properly maintained. Now it crashed frequently. Messages were delayed or lost completely. Council technicians tried to fix it, but they only made things worse. They did not understand the fundamental principles. They just followed basic repair procedures that did not address the real problems. Una watched from her office as everything slowly fell apart. She tried to help where she could, but there was only so much one person could do. The Council had built their civilization on human infrastructure without ever learning how it worked. Councillor Thex visited her one afternoon. He looked tired. His mandibles clicked nervously as he spoke. "I tried to warn them," Thex said. "I presented evidence to the Council." High Speaker Vortan dismissed everything. He said these are just temporary problems. Adjustment issues. They are not temporary, Una replied gently. These systems need expertise to maintain. You cannot learn in a few months what took us decades to develop. Thex's antenna drooped. He knew she was right. Will humanity help us? He asked, if we asked properly. Una considered the question carefully. She thought about Ambassador Minho and Captain Jiwan. She thought about how the Council treated them. I do not know, she said honestly. That is not my decision to make. But I think humanity has moved on. We have our own concerns now. A border dispute erupted that week. 2 Council species both claimed a mineral-rich asteroid field. Tensions rose quickly. Ships from both sides moved into position. It looked like it might turn violent. In the past, human diplomats would step in immediately. They were neutral. They were skilled at finding compromises. Both sides usually accepted human mediation because they trusted human fairness. Now there was no one to mediate. The Council tried to assign someone, but both sides rejected the mediator. They accused the Council of bias. Without a trusted neutral party, the situation escalated. Fighting broke out. Small skirmishes at first, then larger battles. Ships were destroyed. Lives were lost. The Council emergency meetings accomplished nothing. Every species blamed the others. Una watched the news broadcasts in her office. The violence spread. More species took sides. Ancient grievances surfaced. Without human presence to maintain calm, old conflicts reignited. She finished her work that week feeling exhausted. Her contract was almost complete. Soon she could leave this place and return home. A young council aide approached her desk on her last day. "Minister Una," the aide said nervously, "could you stay longer? We need help. Things are falling apart." Una looked at the aide. He was young and scared. He probably did not even vote for humanity's expulsion. But staying would not fix anything. The problems were too big for one person. "I am sorry," Una said gently. "My time here is finished. The Council must find its own solutions now." She packed her belongings that evening. Everything fit in one small case. She had not brought much when she came, and she was taking even less back. Before leaving, she wrote a final report. It was professional and detailed. She documented every system failure, every problem, every crisis. She noted what would likely happen next if nothing changed. The report read like a medical diagnosis. Cold facts. No emotion. No judgment. Just the truth about what was coming. She sent the report to Earth and to Councillor Thex. Then she deleted her files, locked her office, and walked to the shuttle bay. As her shuttle lifted off from Station Veller 7, Una looked down at the massive structure. Somewhere in those corridors, Council officials were discovering new problems. The communication network probably crashed again. Another merchant ship probably sent a distress signal no one would answer. She felt no satisfaction in their struggles. She felt no anger at their mistakes. She just felt tired. The shuttle jumped to faster-than-light speed. Station Veller 7 disappeared behind her. Una closed her eyes and thought about home. Back on the station, news arrived that a major trade hub fell to raiders. The merchants there called for help, but no help came. The Council held another emergency meeting. They argued about what to do. They blamed each other for the failure. And slowly, quietly, their civilization began to crack. The emergency alarms woke Admiral Krelth at 3 a.m. He rushed to the operations center, still fastening his uniform. The scene that greeted him was chaos. "Report," he barked. "Multiple system failures across the network, sir. Power grid instabilities in 7 sectors. Life support fluctuations on 43 stations. Communication breakdowns between fleets. Navigation beacon failures in 12 shipping lanes." Krelth stared at the displays. Red warning indicators covered the tactical map. "How did this happen all at once?" "It did not happen all at once, sir. The failures have been building for 3 weeks. Small problems became bigger problems. Now they are cascading. One system failure causes another. That causes two more. It keeps spreading. Can we stop it? The operations officer hesitated. We are trying, sir, but we do not have enough trained personnel. The humans maintained these systems. They knew how everything connected. We are learning as we go. In Engineering Section 9, emergency crews worked frantically to stabilize the power grid. The chief engineer shouted orders to his team. They had been working for 18 hours straight. The backup systems are not engaging, one technician called out. Why not? I do not know. The activation sequence is not working. The chief engineer pulled up the system documentation, pages and pages of technical specifications, written by humans, full of references to other systems also maintained by humans. He could not follow half of it. Just bypass the automatic systems, he ordered. Switch to manual control. They tried. The manual controls stabilized power to Section 9, but it caused problems in Section 8. They fixed Section 8. Section 10 started failing. It was like trying to hold water in their hands. Every solution created new problems. High Counselor Vreth called an emergency session. The chamber was packed. Representatives from every member species crowded in, all talking at once. Vreth slammed 3 of his arms on the podium. Order, we must have order. The noise barely decreased. A reptilian delegate stood up. My colony's supply shipment is 3 weeks late. Our people are rationing food. When will trade routes be restored? The trade routes are not the priority, an insectoid delegate shot back. My home station is losing atmosphere. Life support is failing. We need help now. Both of you be quiet, a third delegate shouted. My species is at war because the council failed to mediate our dispute. We need peacekeepers. The chamber erupted. Everyone had problems. Everyone needed help. No one was getting it. Vreth tried to restore order. He failed. The session dissolved into arguments and accusations. Finally, he adjourned the meeting. Nothing had been accomplished. In her lab, Yelena studied the quantum communication network. It was dying, not suddenly, slowly, like a flower wilting without water. Every day, signals became weaker. Messages took longer. Data was corrupted more frequently. She tried to calibrate the system herself. She had watched the human technicians work. She understood the theory, but theory and practice were different things. After 6 hours of work, she had made things worse. The network was more unstable now than when she started. She sat back, her energy field flickering with frustration. A message came through, heavily distorted. It was from a research station on the outer rim. They were reporting problems with their experimental reactor. They needed help. Yelena tried to connect them with technical support. The communication failed. She tried again. Failed again. By the time she managed to get a message through, the research station had shut down the reactor. 3 months of experiments were lost. The Kelmar-Drexen conflict had expanded. Now 6 species were involved. Battle lines had formed. Fleets were mobilizing. What started as a trade dispute was becoming a war. Admiral Krelth tried to coordinate council forces to keep the peace. His orders were not reaching all the fleets. The communication protocols were breaking down. Some fleets received orders hours late. Others never received them at all. A council cruiser, trying to position itself between 2 warring factions, arrived in the wrong location because of navigation errors. It was caught in crossfire. 53 crew members died. Krelth stood in the operations center watching everything fall apart. His fleet could not coordinate. His systems were unreliable. His orders were not being followed because they were not being received. Get me the human communication protocols, he ordered. His staff brought him the documentation. Thousands of pages, complex algorithms, integrated systems. It would take years to fully understand. They did not have years. They barely had days. Thex worked around the clock. He had become the unofficial expert on human systems, mainly because he was the only one who had bothered to research them. Other delegates came to him with questions. How did the humans manage supply chain logistics? Where are the backup protocols for life support? Who was responsible for navigation beacon maintenance? Thex tried to answer. He pointed them to documentation. He explained what he had learned, but it was not enough. He was one person trying to fill the gap left by thousands of humans. 2 more conflicts erupted. A water rights dispute on a border world, a mining claim argument in an asteroid belt. Both escalated to violence within days. There were no mediators available. The council tried to send representatives. They arrived too late. The fighting had already started. Trade began to collapse. Ships could not navigate safely. Stations could not process cargo efficiently. Supply chains that had worked smoothly for decades were breaking down. Colonies reported shortages. Some stations began rationing. In human space, Engineer Da-Yoon sat in her office reviewing reports. Information was still coming in from council space. Technical systems she had built were failing. Infrastructure she had maintained was collapsing. Her assistant entered. The council has sent 3 requests for technical assistance. What kind of requests? They want us to send engineers back to fix their systems. They are offering payment, Da-Yoon laughed without humor. They want us to fix the systems we told them they needed to maintain. The systems they ignored. The systems they thought ran themselves. What should I tell them? Tell them no. We are not their servants anymore. Back in council space, Vreth received the human response. It was polite but firm. Humanity would not be sending help. He crushed the message tablet in 2 of his hands. Around him, the council headquarters was struggling. Power fluctuations made the lights flicker. Communication was unreliable. Life support was unstable, and it was getting worse. Vreth looked around his office. For 100 years, this place had run smoothly. Everything had worked. Problems had been solved. Conflicts had been resolved. He had assumed it was because the council was well organized. Because they were efficient. Because they were advanced, he had been wrong. It had worked because humans made it work. They fixed problems before anyone noticed. They resolved conflicts before they escalated. They maintained systems so well that everyone forgot the systems needed maintaining. And now they were gone. Vreth sat down heavily. For the first time in his long career, he did not know what to do. 2 months after humanity left, the Galactic Council was falling apart. 3 major conflicts burned across council space. 15 member species had threatened to leave. Trade had dropped by 40%. Infrastructure failures were now daily occurrences. High Counselor Vreth stood before an emergency assembly. The chamber was half empty. Many delegates had returned to their home worlds. Some to deal with crises. Others had simply given up. We must face reality, Vreth said. His voice was tired. The council cannot function without human participation. We need their expertise. We need their systems. We need them. A Drexen delegate stood. You want us to beg? After we dismissed them for a century? I want us to survive, Vreth replied. Pride is expensive. We are paying the price now. If we continue on this path, the council will collapse within 3 months. Silence filled the chamber. Everyone knew he was right. They had all seen the projections. The cascading failures would not stop. They would only get worse. What do you propose? Admiral Krelth asked. We send a delegation to human space. We ask them to return. We offer whatever terms they want. They will demand everything, another delegate said. Then we give them everything, Vreth said. Because without them we have nothing. The vote was close. But it passed. The council would send a delegation to humanity. Dex volunteered immediately. I should go, he said. I have studied what humans did. I understand their contributions. I can speak to their value. Vreth looked at the young avian. You will be representing the council. You will be speaking for all of us. Are you ready for that responsibility? I am ready, Dex said. Someone needs to tell them the truth. Someone needs to admit what we did wrong. Yelena also joined the delegation. Humans always treated me with respect, she said. Perhaps they will listen to me. Admiral Krelth surprised everyone by volunteering. I relied on human systems for decades, he admitted. I never acknowledged it. I should face them and admit my failure. The delegation departed 3 days later. Their ship crossed into human territory 5 days after that. They sent a formal request for an audience. The humans made them wait. 3 days in orbit around a human diplomatic station. No response. No acknowledgement. Just silence. Thex understood. The council had ignored humanity for a century. 3 days of waiting was nothing. Finally, a message arrived. Ambassador Hyunwoo would meet with them. The meeting would take place on the human station. The delegation would follow human protocols. They were escorted to a conference room. It was simple, functional, no decorations, no displays of power. Just a table and chairs. Hyunwoo entered with Captain Ji-won and Engineer Da-eun. He sat down and looked at the delegation. His expression was neutral. "Thank you for meeting with us," Thex began. "Of course," Hyunwoo said. "We believe in diplomatic courtesy, even when others do not." The words hung in the air. Thex felt them like a weight. "Ambassador, we come to ask for help," Thex said. "The Council is in crisis. Systems are failing. Conflicts are spreading. Without human assistance, everything will collapse." "I know," Hyunwoo said. "We have been monitoring the situation." "Then you know we need you," Admiral Krelth said. "The Council cannot function without you." "That is interesting," Da-un said. 2 months ago, the Council did not need us. High Counselor Vreth said we contributed nothing. He questioned whether we should remain members at all. Krelth lowered his head. "He was wrong. We were all wrong. You relied on our work," Da-un continued. "You used our systems. You took our solutions. But you never acknowledged any of it. You treated us like we were invisible." "You are right," Yelena said quietly. "We took everything for granted. We assumed the systems ran themselves. We never asked who was maintaining them. We never thanked anyone for the work. I researched human contributions," Thex said. He placed a data tablet on the table. "This is my report. It documents everything humans did for the Council. Maintenance, mediation, infrastructure, logistics, everything. It is thousands of pages long, and it is not complete. I kept finding more." Hyunwoo picked up the tablet. He scrolled through it for a moment. Then he set it down. "We know what we did," he said. "We lived it. We worked those jobs. We maintained those systems. We resolved those conflicts. Every day for 100 years. Then you know the Council cannot survive without you," Thex said. "That is the Council's problem," Ji-won said. "Not ours. Please," Krelth said. The word came hard to him. "I am asking. Not as an admiral. Not as a representative. As someone who failed to see what was in front of him for decades. Please help us." Hyunwoo studied the reptilian officer. "You used human tactical systems for 40 years. Did you ever once ask how they worked? No. Did you ever thank the programmers who maintained them? No. Did you ever include their names in your reports when you used their strategies?" Krelth was silent. "We are not angry," Hyunwoo said. "Anger would require surprise. We are not surprised by how the Council treated us. We are simply done accepting it." "What would it take?" Yelena asked. "What would it take for humanity to return?" Hyunwoo leaned back. "That is the right question. Not asking us to return, asking what we require to consider it." He pulled out his own tablet. "These are our terms. Equal representation in the Council. Not junior membership, equal. Full voting rights on all matters. Formal recognition of human contributions. Public acknowledgement of our work. Fair compensation for services. No more treating us as servants. We are partners or we are nothing." Thex read through the terms. They were extensive. They were demanding. They were also completely fair. "I will take these back to the Council," he said. "You should know," Hyunwoo added. "These terms are not negotiable. Accept them completely or we will not return. Humanity does not need the Council. We have proven that. The question is whether the Council needs humanity." "They will accept," Krelth said. "They have no choice." "Everyone has a choice," Ji-won said. "The Council made their choice for a century. Now they live with the consequences. If they want to make a different choice, they can. But it will cost them." The meeting ended. The delegation returned to their ship. They departed for Council space immediately. Da-un watched them go. "Do you think they will accept the terms?" "Yes," Hyunwoo said. "They are desperate. But that is not why we gave them terms they can accept." "Then why?" "Because the terms are fair," Hyunwoo said. "We are not trying to punish them. We are trying to establish a real partnership, one built on respect instead of exploitation." Ji-won joined them at the window. "And if they reject the terms?" "Then we stay home," Hyunwoo said. "And they learn to survive without us. Either way, we will not go back to being invisible." Behind them, through the viewport, Council space glittered in the distance. Systems in crisis. Infrastructure failing. A civilization learning the hard way that the quiet work is often the most important work of all. The Council chamber was full for the first time in months. Every delegate had returned for this vote. The future of the Galactic Council hung in the balance. High Counselor Vreth stood at the podium. He looked older than he had 3 months ago. The crisis had worn on him. "We are here to vote on the human terms," he began. "These terms represent a complete restructuring of Council operations. Humanity will receive equal representation, full voting rights, formal recognition, and fair compensation for all services provided. He paused. These terms also require us to admit our failures, to acknowledge that we took human contributions for granted, to publicly recognize that humanity was the foundation holding the council together. A Kelmar delegate stood. This gives humans enormous power. No, Thek said from his seat. It gives them equal power, which they always deserved. We are the ones who had unequal power before. We just did not realize it because we were on top. The young delegate is correct, Admiral Krelth said. I have spent 3 months trying to coordinate fleets without human systems. I failed, we all failed. The humans built the infrastructure we relied on. They deserve to have a voice in how it is used. Yelena added her voice. I watched human technicians maintain the quantum network for decades. They never asked for recognition. They just did the work. Now the network is dying because we cannot maintain it ourselves. We need their expertise. But more importantly, we need to treat them with the respect they have always deserved. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates resisted. They did not want to admit failure. They did not want to share power equally. But the reality was clear. Without humanity, the council would collapse. 3 conflicts continued to burn. Infrastructure failures multiplied daily. Member species were leaving. Time was running out. Finally, Vreth called for the vote. The chamber fell silent. One by one, the delegates cast their votes. The terms passed. Not unanimously, but by a large majority. Vreth transmitted the results to human space immediately. Then he prepared for what came next. He would have to make a public statement. He would have to admit the council's failures. He would have to thank humanity for work that should have been acknowledged a century ago. It would be humbling. It would be difficult. But it was necessary. In human space, Ambassador Hyunwoo received the notification. The council had accepted all terms. He called a meeting of the human leadership. They agreed, he announced. The room erupted in discussion. Some were pleased. Others were skeptical. Many wanted guarantees that the council would follow through on their promises. We will return, Hyunwoo said. But carefully, slowly, we will rebuild trust through actions, not words. Dayun spoke up. I will take a team back to assess the infrastructure damage. But I want it in writing that we have full authority over repairs. No more working under other departments. No more having our decisions overruled by people who do not understand the systems. Agreed, Hyunwoo said. We work as equals or we do not work at all. Bo-Ram raised her hand. What about the conflicts? 3 wars are active. Dozens of smaller disputes are escalating. They need mediation. You will return to mediation, Hyunwoo said, but with official status. You will be a senior council mediator. Your work will be documented. Your successes will be recorded. You will receive credit for what you accomplish. Bo-Ram nodded. I can work with that. Captain Ji-won stood. I want to be clear about something. We are going back. But if the council returns to old patterns, if they start taking us for granted again, we leave. Immediately. No warnings. No second chances. Agreed, Hyunwoo said. The fleet will remain ready. We will not be trapped there again. 3 weeks later, the first human ships returned to council space. Not thousands, just a few hundred specialists, engineers to stabilize critical systems, mediators to address the most urgent conflicts, technical staff to restore communication networks. Dayun walked into the infrastructure control center. It looked worse than she expected. Systems barely holding together. Emergency patches everywhere. Nothing optimized. We have a lot of work to do, she said to her team. Where do we start? One engineer asked. Life support first. Then power. Then communications. We prioritize what keeps people alive. Everything else can wait. They worked 18-hour days. But this time their work was acknowledged. Council representatives visited regularly. They thanked the teams. They asked about progress. They actually listened to technical recommendations. It was different. Better Bo-Ram traveled to the Kelmar-Drexen border. The war had been burning for 3 months. Hundreds had died. Both sides were exhausted but too proud to stop. She met with leaders from both factions. She listened to their grievances. She found the common ground they had lost sight of. She proposed solutions that addressed both sides' concerns. It took 2 weeks, but she got them talking, then negotiating, then agreeing. The ceasefire was announced on day 17. The peace agreement came 3 days later. When the official report was filed, Boram's name was listed first. Her role was clearly documented. Her contribution was recognized. She sent a copy of the report to Hyunwoo. "It is strange," she wrote, "seeing my name in the official records. After all these years of working anonymously, it feels good." 2 months after humanity's return, the council held a special ceremony. The chamber was decorated for the first time anyone could remember. Every seat was filled. High Counselor Vreth stood at the podium. Behind him, a massive display showed images. Human engineers at work, human mediators in negotiations, human technicians maintaining systems. "Today we formally recognize humanity's contributions to the Galactic Council," Vreth announced. "For a century, humans worked to maintain our infrastructure. They resolved our conflicts. They kept our systems running. They did this work without recognition, without thanks, without acknowledgement." He paused. "This was wrong. We were wrong. We took their contributions for granted. We treated essential work as invisible. We failed to recognize that they were the foundation holding everything together." The chamber was silent. Vreth continued. "When they left, we learned what we had lost. Systems collapsed. Conflicts erupted. Infrastructure failed. We realized too late that humanity was not a minor member of the council. They were essential. They were partners. They were equals who we had been treating as servants." He gestured to the human delegation seated in the front row. "Today we correct this failure. Humanity is granted full and equal status in the council. All votes. All decisions. Full partnership in all matters. This is not a favor. This is justice. This is what should have been from the beginning." The chamber erupted in applause. Delegates from every species stood. The ovation lasted 5 minutes. Hyunwoo stood and walked to the podium. Vreth stepped aside. The chamber quieted. "Thank you," Hyunwoo said simply. "These words and this recognition are important. But words alone are not enough. True partnership requires ongoing respect. It requires listening to all voices, not just the loudest. It requires recognizing that every contribution matters, whether it is visible or not." He looked around the chamber. "Humanity returns as equal partners. We will work with you to rebuild what was damaged. We will help restore systems and resolve conflicts. But we return with clear understanding. If the council returns to old patterns, if we are dismissed or overlooked again, we will leave. And next time we will not come back. This will not happen again," Vreth said firmly. "We have learned the price of arrogance. We will not pay it twice," Hyunwoo nodded. "Then we have a foundation to build on. Not the foundation of the past where some worked and others took credit, but a new foundation, built on mutual respect, built on recognizing all contributions, built on true partnership." Later that evening, Hyunwoo stood with Jiwon and Daewon at a viewport overlooking council space. "Do you think it will last?" Daewon asked. "I do not know," Hyunwoo admitted. "People forget lessons, especially when things are going well. They might take us for granted again someday." "And if they do?" Jiwon asked. "Then we walk away again," Hyunwoo said. "We proved we can survive without them. They learned they cannot survive without us. That balance is important. It keeps the partnership honest." He turned from the viewport. "But I think it will work, because they paid the price. They felt the cost. That kind of lesson stays with you." Outside the window, the council headquarters gleamed with renewed life. Systems were stabilizing. Conflicts were resolving. The infrastructure was being rebuilt, not by invisible hands working in the shadows, but by recognized partners working together, building something better than what came before. In the military wing, Admiral Krelth studied the restored tactical displays. Human systems worked perfectly again, but now he understood them. Human advisors had spent weeks teaching his staff how everything functioned. The knowledge was being shared, not hoarded. In the science wing, Yelena worked alongside human technicians on the quantum network. They taught her the calibration procedures. They explained the maintenance protocols. They treated her as a colleague, not a subordinate. In his office, Thex compiled his regular report on council operations. The document included detailed credits. Every person who contributed to any project was listed by name. Human, alien, it did not matter. Contributions were recognized equally. It was a small thing. But small things mattered. Small recognitions.